Tonight, providing shelter for 70 people removed from a camp outside Regina City Hall is proving difficult. And neglect of duty. A sister pushes to have her late brother's assault properly investigated. Plus, a win for Canada and Saskatchewan. A local swimmer is bringing home gold from across the pond.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Monday, July 31st. CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hello, and thank you for joining us. Sam McKaig is away this week. It's been 3 days since the homeless encampment at Regina City Hall was dismantled due to what the city and the fire marshal called unsafe conditions. Now, some people who live there are back to where they started, on the street. Their future uncertain. Laura Sharpaletti has that story.
Volunteers and camp residents say watching the tents be taken down on Friday was very difficult.
It was just such an amazing place, and I'm heartbroken it's gone, and very, very, very concerned about the people who did not have a bed to go home to when this place was so brutally taken down.
Stratton was among 11 people who were arrested at the camp on Friday. She was taken into custody for obstructing police, as was camp volunteer Mandela Matambu. Matambu is trying to make sure the camp residents are okay.
We walked around Friday night, Saturday nights, and last night. And last night was the main actual first time we went out as a group, not just individually. And we saw there, I probably saw 15 plus people from camp just living on the streets and back alleys.
The city of Regina and the province have consistently said that many camp residents turn down help in finding housing. Stratton says it's not black and white.
Lots of people don't have papers because they've lost them, so they aren't eligible for any of these things that are being offered. But if anybody refused, I'm assuming that the conditions were intolerable that they were offered.
The Ministry of Social Services says it's connected about 70 people with emergency shelter options, ranging from shelters to friends and family to hotels. But the opposition says that's not a good enough plan.
To deal with the homelessness crisis that we're seeing in the province right now, for the government to stop contributing to that crisis, their choices around the SIS program, for example, their choice to leave 3,000 affordable housing units vacant.
Former encampment resident Chantel Lanke says that while she'll stay with a relative tonight, the future is always uncertain.
And they say, sorry, we don't accept people on social assistance. Every person that I've called has told me that. A lot of people, I don't think they, because they're drug addicts. I'll admit, I'm struggling myself right now.
She says landlords turn her down because she's on SIS. Lanke says detox centers only provide a bed for a few days when it takes weeks to recover from the painful withdrawal symptoms. This has contributed to her cycle of homelessness. In the meantime, the province tells CBC it's working with community organizations to develop plans for longer-term shelter options. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatchewan NDP says affordability is the number one issue its candidates are hearing on doorsteps as they canvass in 3 by-elections. The NDP says it crunched the government's numbers and found the cost of living has shot up since 2016. It says the average family is now paying $1,600 more a year in PST, power, and phone bills. The party held a press conference with a young family in Regina this morning. Elaine Dubord is a mother of 2 and a small business owner. She says their electricity bill has nearly doubled. She and her partner struggle to buy groceries, and they can't afford house renovations or kids' activities.
Trying to do activities, extracurriculars, getting our kids into programs feels really stressful and like a big burden, and we want to give them the best, and it just doesn't feel like we have the tools at our disposal to do that.
The Saskatchewan party says the NDP is being selective with its math. It says Saskatchewan is the most affordable province in Canada for a family of 4 when taxes, utilities, and housing costs are combined. It points to the federal carbon tax as the problem. The RCMP have admitted they found flaws in an investigation their officers conducted into an assault last year. But the victim's sister is worried that won't be enough to affect change in how police respond to situations involving people with mental health issues. The CBC's Dane Patterson has more.
Shanda Tanzoni lodged a complaint to the RCMP last November. She'd been looking into the alleged assault of her late brother, Chris Hawkins, and she felt the information she received from officers wasn't adding up. Now she has a police report from the RCMP that shows neglect of duty.
So part of my healing process in this grief was making sure that his voice was heard and finding out the truth.
She says her brother was searching for work on farms in the Melfort area in late August. The document from RCMP shows when police responded to a call claiming Hawkins was trespassing, officers found him tied up and beaten. He was arrested on charges including trespassing and break and enter. The report, a response to her complaint, says he was viciously and unnecessarily assaulted. Hawkins apparently pleaded with the officer to charge the men, but they were never arrested. Hawkins was taken to the Melfort Hospital and then later airlifted to Saskatoon. And despite there being video of the alleged assault, the report shows that Constable Alphonse Noe did not try to corroborate Hawkins' claim of assault or the claims against Hawkins. Tanzoni says her brother struggled with mental health challenges that made managing situations like these difficult.
He was a person. He was a person that was loved, and he had a lot of family support. And I think that in this situation, he was treated like a nobody. He was treated like his life didn't matter, and that's hard.
The charges against Hawkins were stayed after his death, which was about a month after the assault. An autopsy report says he died of pre-existing health conditions, and there was no evidence to suggest that trauma contributed to it. Even though the coroner's initial findings don't show the assault led to his death, Tanzoni believes to some degree it did. Tanzoni was determined to investigate what happened on the farm that day. She says she obtained a video from a tipster. The RCMP complaint investigator says without it, the 2 men would not have been charged. 6 months after her brother was found at the farm, Adam and Peter McLean are now facing assault and forcible confinement charges. Their case comes up again in August. The report offers an apology to Tanzoni, but she still wonders whether her brother's case will actually change RCMP response to incidents.
I would always want an RCMP to treat someone like it was their own mother or father, brother or sister, you know, when they come into a situation like this, and not just a nobody laying on the ground.
When Constable Noe returns from an extended leave, he is set to undergo additional training. Another RCMP officer, Staff Sergeant Darren Simons, was found to have provided incorrect information to Tanzoni. He retired after the incident and is no longer in the purview of the RCMP. Neither accused or the RCMP officers have responded to multiple requests for comment from CBC. Dane Patterson, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Many of us turn to apps like DoorDash, Skip the Dishes, or Uber Eats when we need a quick bite. But not all restaurants want to be on these platforms. 2 Saskatoon restaurant owners weren't too happy when they were listed on Uber Eats without their consent. CBC's Aishwarya Duda has the details.
Last week, 5 different delivery drivers from Uber Eats showed up at the Granary on 8th Street to pick up food, even though the owner never registered the restaurant on the app. Merrick Davey was shocked when he got the call from his manager.
Hey, are we on Uber Eats perchance? And you forgot to tell me? And I was like, no way, what's happening? He said, there's a Uber Eats driver here to pick up an order, and I have no idea why.
He downloaded the app and found his restaurant, the menu, and even fake photos. He couldn't get a hold of the company or get help without an Uber account, and he won't sign up for one because of their terms and conditions.
So I typed out a threatening, letter type of thing to them, but where am I going to send it? So I went on their Facebook page, found Uber Eats, and I put every single one of their posts on their page. I put it on their comments, every single one of them.
Davey also shared the story on Granery's Facebook page, and within 24 hours, the restaurant disappeared from the Uber Eats app. But Davey wasn't alone in his anger. The owner of Mulberry's had the same experience.
The telephone was ringing and they said they were from Uber Eats to pick up the order. And I'm like, order? What kind of order are you planning? So I came out and talked to the person. They showed me on their phone that they had the Mulberry's app and everything on there, which we have never, ever signed up for.
In a statement, Uber Eats says this was fraudulent activity. Someone not related to the restaurants or Uber Eats signed up the two restaurants through the self-sign-up feature in the app. It goes on to say, we do have robust checks in place to minimize fraudulent activity. Unfortunately, there are still rare instances of bad actors. We take these issues seriously and work to resolve these complaints promptly when we become aware of them.
When I first found out, I was ready to flip, but who am I going to flip to? You know what I mean? You can't contact anyone, you can't do anything. So it was emotionally very draining.
The restaurant owner says he still hasn't received any communication from Uber Eats. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Is it going to be goal for Canada? Is it going to be another goal for China? Newkirk into the finish now. It looks like she's going to retain her world title.
Saskatoon's Shelby Newkirk bringing home gold for Canada on day one of the Para Swimming World Championships. Newkirk snagged her second straight world title, winning the 100-meter backstroke in Manchester today. She even bested her record from last year. The 27-year-old now has her sights on competing next summer at the Paralympic Games in Paris. Congrats, Shelby. We'll be back after the break. Canada's run at the Women's World Cup of Soccer ended today, and it wasn't pretty. Australia notched a 4-0 victory in the critical match, delighting hometown fans and crushing Canadian players. Lindsay Duncombe has more on the lopsided loss.
This was absolutely devastating for Canada. The worst game the women have had in years. Every time the Australians scored, this stadium shook with cheers. And it happened a lot. The Matildas came in strong, 2 goals in the first half by forward Hayley Rasso, and they could have had a third. An Australian goal was ruled offside. 4 substitutions at the half didn't make a difference. Sophie Schmidt missed the net, and Australians hit it again and again. There were tears in the mixed zone.
Just a bad night to have a bad night.
What happened?
Yeah, I mean, I think they just showed up better than we did. Yeah, I mean, they took advantage of some momentum early, and I think the game got a bit stretched for us, and yeah, they wanted it more than we did tonight.
What happened?
Not sure. Honestly, I'm not sure. We were ready for this game, so yeah.
It felt like that first goal so early came as a bit of a surprise. They just never really got the momentum back.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was tough. I don't have many words right now. It was tough.
This will be the last World Cup for Sophie Schmidt. Captain Christine Sinclair is 40 and didn't answer questions about her future, but she is thinking about the future of the game in Canada.
I think this, for me, is a wake-up call for back home, a wake-up call to our federation and the lack of a professional league, the lack of resources for the national teams, the lack of resources for the youth national teams that similar as on the men's side. I mean, if the resources aren't there, we're going to fall behind.
At a press conference after the game, head coach Bev Priestman summed up the result simply. She said, "This is going to hurt like hell." Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Melbourne.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Winds that blew a wildfire into British Columbia from the U.S. appear to be headed back south. The Eagle Bluff fire, which had been threatening the town of Osoyoos, is now being blown in the opposite direction. The flames crossed the border from Washington state into south central BC Saturday evening. The fire is still considered out of control. The number of properties under evacuation order has dropped, but alerts remain in place. Along with the change in wind direction, firefighters are also benefiting from some rain and cooler temperatures across most of BC. And Ethan Williams joins us now with a look at the weather here in Saskatchewan. Ethan, will we be seeing any wildfire risk or smoke here in our own province?
Well, I think the smoke is definitely going to be coming from the north, Natasha, and it's mostly northern Saskatchewan that's going to be seeing that over the next few days. We will talk about the smoke in a second, but first, it's all about the severe weather in south and central Saskatchewan today. Multiple severe thunderstorm warnings in effect. We'll start with these couple of cells crossing Highway 55 between Green Lake and Big River. Just saw a cell move through the Big River area right now. Actually, it's moving through. A bit of a cell showing a little bit of rotation as well as this crosses Highway 12 just north of Warman and hits toward Highway 11 near the Ross Turn area. And then a couple of cells that we're watching. This one no longer under a severe thunderstorm warning east of Regina, but a cell that moved through the Raymore area now moving east of there is showing some severe weather as well. And then we also had a couple of cells that moved through the Hudson Bay area. Most of these cells producing nickel to ping pong ball-sized hail, some very strong winds and heavy rain as well. We also have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a broad swath of the province this evening, all the way kind of from the Meadow Lake area through Prince Albert down to Saskatoon, and then much of the eastern half of south and central, including Regina, is where we're seeing that. Notice that we also have some heat warnings that are just bordering up along the Saskatchewan border there. At this point, it doesn't quite look like our overnight lows and daytime highs are going to get quite warm enough for 2 consecutive days or more to trigger those warnings on our side of the border, but it has been a hot day, and many locations, especially in south central and southwestern Saskatchewan, getting above what the forecast high was today. That includes Regina, still sitting at 33, and with a bit of humidity, still feeling into those mid-30s right now. Now, in the north, where we are dealing with smoke, air quality advisories are still in place along the northern border. They've dropped off for portions of the far north and the Churchill region, but I think they're going to need to be reissued again because we have another plume of smoke that's going to be moving in over these next couple of days. Very heavy smoke, especially in the far north, so we'll be keeping our eye on that. But some rain, much needed rain, coming to the far north in the form of this low pressure system overnight tonight. South and central getting clearing overnight, thunderstorms dying down. Tomorrow, looking for more showers and thunderstorms, but not as severe as we saw them today. Showers continuing in the north as that low begins to move out, and then all of us seeing some clearing as we start to head into Wednesday. Most of the north looking for around 2 to 4 millimeters, but in that far northwestern section around Uranium City, that's where the highest amounts are likely going to be, could be upwards of 20 millimeters. Now, for Regina, the next few days here are going to be marked by, again, a little bit of unstable weather here and there, but the severe threat remaining pretty low, but staying near 30 degrees until we hit Friday, and then we go back down into some more seasonal conditions. Saskatoon, I think the 30-degree weather sticking around for another couple of days here, and then more seasonal conditions by Thursday, but still a little bit unsettled as well. Overnight lows going to remain in those mid-teens. We should see clearing by the time we hit the weekend or so. So after a couple of days of really intense heat, Natasha, we are looking for those temperatures to get back down into those seasonal values.
Thanks for that, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Stay with us. We'll have more news after the break. Saskatchewan has seen several cases of high-profile people claiming Indigenous heritage without any evidence. Now, a similar situation is playing out in Manitoba. For years, Environment Minister Kevin Klein has been identifying as Métis. His brother is now disputing that. He says he doesn't consider his family to be Métis and that Kevin Klein is exploiting their mother's death for political gain. The I-Team's Carolyn Bargout has that story.
Hi everybody, I'm Kevin Klein.
He's talked about being Indigenous on Instagram.
As some of you may know, my mother was murdered by her partner, and she was Indigenous.
He's talked about it at City Hall.
I want to speak from a place that no one else in council can speak from. My Indigenous mother was murdered.
His government biography says Kevin Klein is a proud Métis Canadian and continues to explore working with elders in Manitoba to research his connections to Indigenous community. Earlier this year, Premier Heather Stephenson identified Klein as one of 2 Indigenous PC MLAs.
We need to attract more Indigenous candidates, and we are, working towards that as well. A more diverse, more diversity within our candidate selection.
Klein has a Métis card from a for-profit Ontario company called Painted Feather Woodland Métis, an organization that is not recognized by the Manitoba Métis Federation or the Métis Nation of Ontario. Critics say the card is worthless. Before the 2022 mayoral election, Klein talked about getting his Métis card.
For me, it's not about the politics of it. It was just because if that's where my family finds their roots and their heritage, I want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of the political stuff. And as I said, I don't claim to be Métis for politics. I did it beforehand. And it's an important part of my connection to family.
CBC News searched marriage, death certificates, and census data, which in some cases went back to the 1800s, and could not find any evidence of Klein's maternal Métis ancestry. Klein is now refusing to answer questions about his heritage, saying it's a private and personal journey. His lawyer sent CBC a letter telling us to stop asking about it. Métis lawyer Jean Taillé wrote a report for the University of Saskatchewan on how to prevent false claims of indigeneity.
This idea that it's a personal journey and no one can question it, I call it again, it's BS, right? And we shouldn't give it credit. And so if he's on a personal journey for 6 to 8 years, trying to find an Indigenous identity somewhere, then personally, I think he should shut up about it until he figures it out.
In the past, Klein said he's been trying to learn about his Métis heritage as a way to connect with his mother. She was murdered by her partner when he was 26 years old. His brother sees it differently.
Christopher Rout is Kevin Klein's younger brother. They have different last names because Klein changed his name sometime before his second marriage. We contacted him to find out more about the family's heritage.
And I remember learning about Métis in school. I think I would have learned something then and been told something, but no, we're not Métis.
Rout says not only is the family not Métis, he believes Klein is using their mother's death for political gain.
My wife asked me, why are you doing this? It's simply to defend my mom's story. I'll defend my mom's story against anybody. Politician or not, I don't care who it is. I'll defend my mom's story. I think, to me, a son's job is to defend their mom's story, not exploit it for any gain.
Kevin Klein!
We asked the Premier, given the new information, if she still considers Klein Indigenous. We received this statement. We are proud to have the first ever Muslim minister of the Crown, first Black minister, and first woman Premier in our caucus. Minister Klein is on the record stating clearly he is on a personal journey and his ancestry is not for political gain. The Premier declined to answer if the government still considers Klein Métis. Caroline Bargout, CBC News, Winnipeg.
And Ethan is back with another look at our weather.
And starting August on a very hot note once again, Natasha, 22 degrees in Regina at 8 a.m. with mostly sunny skies. And as we head toward the afternoon, we'll see a little bit of cloud cover building in. Could be an afternoon thunderstorm, but close to 30 and feeling like 32 with the humidex. Saskatoon, very summer-like morning tomorrow, 21 light winds, lots of sunshine as well. And there is a chance that we could possibly see some storms in the afternoon as well for Saskatoon. Again, looking at that humidex getting close to 30. A reminder that we have numerous severe thunderstorm warnings in effect through south and central, nickel to ping pong ball sized hail, some strong winds and heavy rains as well. And we're also looking at that severe thunderstorm watch in effect for a good chunk of south and central Saskatchewan. And Natasha, the threat tomorrow looking less severe, but a good night to keep your eyes on the sky tonight.
Sounds good. Thank you, Ethan.
You bet.
And that's it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news at 11. Thanks for watching and have a great night.